So I was scrolling around on Twitter when I ended up finding a tweet talking about the Switch 2 and something called variable pricing. And basically some Switch games, some Switch 2 games, will have different pricing depending on certain factors. Now I had no idea what this meant, but luckily we have a Nintendo representative to explain it to us today. We're gonna go over an article today that explains exactly what variable pricing is so that there's no confusion. Let's get straight into it. Nintendo boss Doug Bowser explains the $80 price for Mario Kart World. I mean, you didn't even have to write an article for this, you could just sum it up with one word. Money. The reason why Mario Kart World is $80 is because Nintendo wants money. That's it. End of story. If I wanted to, I could just end the video right now, but I think it would be more entertaining to go through the entire article. Shortly before President Donald Trump's far-reaching tariffs stunned the global economy, gamers were fixated on another number. Nintendo announced the Switch 2's marquee title Mario Kart World would cost $80. That, combined with the $450 price for the new console, put fans last week into a bit of a sticker shock, and that was before Nintendo delayed the pre-order for US buyers indefinitely to take stock of the new tariffs. I found it funny how so many people were trying to blame the tariffs, but I'm glad that narrative is dead now. However, what I'm not fucking glad about is the fact that there's probably gonna be another price increase due to the tariffs. I sat down with Doug Bowser, Nintendo of America's president. Oh yeah, for those of you who don't know, Doug Bowser over here, which by the way, the name is absolutely hilarious considering what we're talking about here. This guy used to work for everyone's favorite company. I'll give you guys a whopping 5 seconds to go ahead and guess what that company is. I'll give you 4 options. Is it A, Ubisoft, B, Activision, C, Rockstar, or D, EA? Alright, you got 5 seconds. If you answered D, EA, you are correct. So yeah, this guy used to work for EA, so take everything he says with a massive grain of salt. The day before the tariff decision, Nintendo won't address the tariffs beyond the delay announcement, but Bowser provided some insight into the company's approach to pricing titles. Yeah, the fact that they're not addressing the tariff likely means there's going to be a price increase due to them. Because if there was no price increase, they'd probably be happy to come out and say that so that people aren't worrying. First off, Bowser noted that the other marquee title, Donkey Kong Bonanza, remains at the standard retail price for premium games of $70. What you see right there is variable pricing, Bowser told the Washington Post. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of the gameplay experiences. I have a feeling that this is negatively going to impact the development process. Like, I feel like they will purposely make games less replayable if they know they're gonna price it for $60 or $70. Or they might end up putting a bunch of bloat in a game so they can price it higher and claim that it's bigger and more expansive. And with the way that the AAA industry is, can you really fucking blame me for thinking this way? Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. World is the follow-up to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the best-selling standalone Nintendo game of all time with more than 67 million sold. Dude, it is honestly crazy to think that I was in middle school when Mario Kart 8 came out, and we still haven't gotten a brand new Mario Kart game since. I do remember Mario Kart 8 getting like some massive update though with a ton of courses and stuff like that, but that's not really a new game, it's just an expansion. A really good expansion, but still an expansion. Nintendo has been an industry pioneer since the advent of the video game age in the 1980s. The Game Boy introduced the concept of handheld gaming that proved so popular. Even Hillary Clinton was playing. Wow, what an honor. The Wii's success in 2006 sparked the chase for motion-based control systems. The Switch in 2017 cemented the handheld video game device market with its hybrid design for portable and TV play, which created the runway for more portable gaming devices like Steam's niche but beloved Steam Deck. I honestly think the Steam Deck is so much superior to the base Switch. Now, I don't know about the Switch 2 because it obviously isn't out yet, but the fact that you can play all of the Switch games on the Steam Deck by emulating, and to play basically any console game as well, at least, the older consoles, just makes it so much more worth it than the Switch, because you can also play Steam games. I asked Bowser if Nintendo breaking the seal on higher game prices is part of its role as an industry leader. I think it's less about representing the industry, this is really about Nintendo deciding the right thing to do for its products, or what the pricing should be for its products overall, he said. Even in the previous generation, we had some variability. Bowser pointed to various Zelda games being priced differently. Tears of the Kingdom in 2023 was massively popular and Nintendo's first $70 game. Alright, there's two things I want to note here. First of all, I, and many others, didn't think Tears of the Kingdom was worth $70, and this comes from someone who did enjoy the game. I say this because it was originally supposed to be a DLC, and it is very, very, very similar to Breath of the Wild, even kind of reusing the same map. And second of all, that's a lot different than raising the price to $80, because back then Nintendo was actually behind the industry standard when it comes to pricing on video games. Everyone else was charging $70 while Nintendo was still charging $60. Now, with the Switch 2, everyone is pricing their games at $70 and Nintendo is going above to price at $80. While the previous game from 2017 is $60, the remake of Link's Awakening also costs $60, and while it's an old Game Boy game, it was completely remade from the ground up with new technology, art style, and content. I think for us, that's really how we want to proceed and go forward, he said. I can't speak for other games that might be released by other publishers or other platforms. It's more about what we think is right for our content, what is the right value for the consumers as they come into our platform. I mean, two things again. First of all, aren't consumers supposed to decide the value something has? Second of all, you know exactly what's going to happen with the other publishers and platforms. They're going to up the prices of their games and say, well, Nintendo did it, so I'm going to do it too. Pricing has long been a point of debate in the industry as retail prices struggled to keep pace with ballooning budgets for games. And we shouldn't be responsible for the fact that developers can't budget their games efficiently. This reminds me when one of the PlayStation people came out and said we need to start buying the remakes and remasters in order for new games to be made. It's like, no, learn to fucking budget better. With new economic chaos, it's hard to tell how much video games and consoles may cost in the coming years. The Switch 2 was announced with a $450 price tag, which makes it the most expensive Nintendo console ever shipped. But the price is also reasonable given its capabilities and it's consistent with how other PC handheld devices are priced. Absolutely not. The PC handheld devices may have similar power to the Switch 2, but they can do infinitely more things as they literally have a computer built in, unlike the Switch 2 that can only play Switch games. Oh yeah, and you can also play Switch games on those other devices, plus all the other shit you can do. The first Switch remains $300, while an OLED screen model is sold for $350. A light version that doesn't switch to a home console is $200. Bowser said Nintendo remains committed to selling the first Switch console 4 years ago. In our first conversation, Bowser said the Switch is redefining what a console cycle can look like. Now I even wonder what is the definition of a console cycle, Bowser said. We'll continue to keep Nintendo Switch as part of the family, giving consumers a number of different entry points that they can come into the gaming universe. Currently, there are no plans to reduce the price of the older devices, he said, but he leaves the door open to the possibility. Are you fucking serious? You have no plans to reduce the price of an 8-year-old system at this point. An 8-year-old system that's not even going to be next gen in a few months. Holy shit, man. Not only will Nintendo never ever put their games on sale or make bundles or anything like that, but it seems like they don't even want to put basically a last gen console at this point on sale. God damn, bro. At more than 150 million units sold, the Switch is the third best-selling video game device of all time, behind Sony's PlayStation 2 and Nintendo DS respectively. What I would say is that we'll continue to observe consumers and how they engage and enter into the platform at various levels, to try to really understand what the future may look like, Bowser said. Here's the other point. We have an install base for the Switch of 150 million plus units. We will probably announce more on May 8th when we have our next earnings call. We want to keep those players engaged. Not all of them may be ready to jump to Switch 2. You know, me and probably a lot of other people out there would be willing to jump to the Switch 2 if the games were not overpriced and the system was a little bit cheaper. I'm gonna be completely honest, a $450 system isn't even that big of a deal for me. That's not the big issue I have. I think it's a little bit overpriced, but nothing insane. What I do think is insane is $80 video games. And before I get some comment about inflation or how games back in the day costed more or blah blah blah, games back in the day were more expensive because of the actual materials you had to use to make the cartridges, and game development was harder and more expensive. There is no reason a digital game should be $80. $70 is too much for a goddamn digital game. We were told, by the way, when games went up to $70 that they would be higher quality, which was an absolute lie, by the way. What frame rate did Forspoken, Starfield, and Redfall run at when those games came out? Oh yeah, 30. The original Switch is scheduled to release additional games, with several more announced just the other week. Hopefully with time and with the right games, it'll be compelling for them to want to come onto Nintendo Switch 2. We know there's a group of consumers that will be absolutely ready on day one to come onto the platform, he said. Bro, there's no way he referred to Nintendo fans as consumers. He didn't even say players or users. Consumers. You can tell this guy worked at EA. Despite the pricing controversy, Nintendo's 1-hour announcement last week thrilled fans across a variety of genres and interests. More than 40 Switch 2 games, including ports and re-releases, were announced, with many planned for release this year. The most shocking announcement was about an exclusive game by celebrated studio From Software, the makers of Elden Ring. The Duskbloods will be a multiplayer-focused game directed by Miyazaki, the creator of the Dark Souls series. Y'all have no idea how disappointed I was when I found out that the new Souls game based around Bloodborne was actually going to be a multiplayer-only game. That shit crushed my soul, dude. At this point, we will never see a sequel or spiritual successor to Bloodborne. It's done, dude. I've lost hope. And what makes it even worse is you need Nintendo Switch Online to play this game at all. I guess we have our first Miyazaki L. It was funny when it was announced, Bowser said. My son texted me right away and was like, "What was that?" Bowser said Miyazaki's confidence in the system speaks to the hardware's expanded capabilities to create new gameplay experiences. Past Nintendo consoles struggled with getting broad support from third-party publishers, but the Switch's popularity has reeled several of them to dedicate games back with Nintendo. The Switch's portability and dedication to gaming experiences drew millions of players who aren't interested in gaming on smartphones and other general-purpose mobile devices. They're used for communication, whether it's audio, emails, or other forms of entertainment. They're multi-use, Bowser said. The Nintendo Switch is the device designed for playing video games only, and I think that for people has been very attractive. Well, the Nintendo Switch 2 was very attractive to me when I first seen it. Like, when I first watched the showcase, I was actually pretty excited for the Switch 2. But then all of your anti-consumer practices came out. The pricing for games was revealed, and I just kinda lost all interest, man. Anyway, that is going to do it for today's video. Basically, I think this whole variable pricing shit is absolutely pathetic, and I hope I don't see the rest of the industry adopt this garbage practice, because you know damn well, publishers like Ubisoft are gonna jam as much bloat they can into the games so they can try to justify jacking up the price. Anyway, if you liked this video, make sure to leave a like. If you don't like this video, leave a dislike and a mean comment. Alright, peace y'all.